Hi, my name is Grant Kramer, and I'm a professor emeritus at the University of Nevada, Reno. Welcome to my series, My Backyard Vineyard. This is the ending episode of season 2025, and I will do a summary of this year's videos. My Backyard Vineyard, season 4, episode 9. This is the season summary for 2025. So in this video, we will review the season from start to finish. First, we'll briefly review the weather statistics, touch on vineyard maintenance, follow the progress of the growth and development of the vines, highlight the successes and failures of plant nutrition, discuss the insect and disease challenges this year, touch on the harvest numbers, review changes in my winemaking practices, and perform a critical assessment of what went right and what went wrong this season, and how I can make adjustments for the coming season. In this figure, you can view the climate data for the 2025 season. On the left are the precipitation and temperature data, and on the right are the cloud cover data. The average high temperatures for 2025, seen here in red, were near seasonal averages, seen here in green. But rainfall was much lower in the spring, except for the deluge we had in March. The seasonal averages for precipitation are the blue bars, and the orange bars reflect the 2025 data. When looking at the cloud cover over the entire 24-hour day, seen in the right graph as darker magenta bars, my location was slightly cloudier than average, which is shown as a line, especially in the months of February, June, and August. However, when looking only at daytime hours, shown here as pink bars, the skies were only cloudy about a third of the day, just a few hours in the morning and in the evening. This was largely due to the coming and going of the marine layer. And this nighttime marine layer explains the high percentage of cloud cover for a 24-hour day compared to the daytime hours, seen here in the graph. Maintenance involved pruning, suckering, some leaf pull to open up the canopy, and a fair bit of lateral shoot removal. The grass around the vines had to be mowed periodically. Everything went fine, and there was nothing unusual to report in this year. I continued to fine-tune my irrigation, reducing the amount of each irrigation, but increasing the frequency. This was an adjustment for my clay soils that overly harden when they dry out, but easily become waterlogged if I over-irrigate. The vines continue to grow and develop despite the mineral nutrition problems I have encountered. You can see this fairly easily in the next series of pictures of both the right and left vineyards around the same time of the season in 2023 and 2024 and 2025. That is the second, third, and fourth year of the vineyard. Vines normally reach their productive maturity in the sixth year. Some of my weaker vines may take a little longer to catch up. Note these pictures were taken at approximately the same time each year, so these make for a good comparison of the progression of the vineyards over the last 3 years. Now let's look at the growth of the right vineyard from the start of the season to the end of the season. This gives us a glimpse of vine development over the season, starting with bud break to rapid growth. This growth ends in June after shoot trimming, which was done to make my vineyard more manageable. After that, you can follow the color changes as fruit set occurs and the berry clusters develop. Harvest occurs in August. The leaves remain green in late September, but by early November, they are beginning to senesce in preparation for dormancy. If you look closely, you can see the green shoots are becoming woody. They are hardening off, making themselves more cold tolerant as they prepare for the coming winter. Many of the mineral nutrient conditions have been resolved and are under control. Boron deficiency was resolved with boron supplements. Here you can see that the boron petiole concentrations at bloom are in the sufficient range. Nitrogen and iron petiole concentrations were borderline low at bloom, and this required additional supplementation through the season to maintain good vine health and nutrition. Potassium fertilization in the soil in the previous year left potassium concentrations in the soil on the high side, whereas magnesium and calcium concentrations were on the low side. This appears to have exacerbated the magnesium concentrations in the petiole, leading to magnesium deficiency at fruit set. However, the potassium and calcium concentrations were in the sufficient range in the petioles. The potassium is competitive with magnesium uptake and probably reduced the amount of magnesium getting into the plant even more so than the fact that the magnesium was at lower concentrations in the soil. This was also reflected in a later analysis where magnesium concentrations were in the deficiency range and showing interveinal chlorosis characteristics of magnesium deficiency in mature Pinot Noir leaves. So the previous analysis was in petioles, and this is in the actual leaves at a later stage. And finally, elemental sulfur was added in the spring and again in the fall to make further adjustments to lowering my soil pH, which will enhance the overall mineral nutrition of the vineyard. Other than bees, no other insects were a problem this year, and I had no powdery mildew problems. However, the bees were devastating just before harvest. This is the first time I've encountered a bee problem. They devoured or damaged nearly 20% of my grapes in about 2 days and forced me to harvest my grapes 1 week earlier than I wanted to. So I have prepared for next season by buying bee netting and pre-cutting out the netting and setting it up this year, so I'll be ready to go next year if the bees should come again. And I will put out the netting even if I don't see the bees coming, just because I can't anticipate whether they're going to be here or not, and I don't want that effect to happen again. Nonetheless, I've tripled my harvest yield from last year, indicating the continued progress in the growth and maturity of my vines. One of the changes in my winemaking practice from the previous year was to have a longer extraction time. In the previous year, I pressed the grapes as whole clusters immediately after harvest. The result was a nearly white wine after the fermentation and filtering process. This year, I pressed the grapes and then soaked the juice in the skins and stems overnight. And then I pressed the grapes again to separate out the juice. This resulted in good color, the color I was seeking in a good rosé. So overall, 2025 was a successful year. I continued to make progress with my vineyard. It's growing well. The adjustments I am making to the irrigation, to the fertilization and nutrition, and to my vinification practices is continuing to improve the quality of my vineyard and my wines. I had a couple of serious problems this year. The first one was really about magnesium deficiency. The other issues with nutrition were taken care of by the supplementation that I did. The magnesium deficiency is serious in that it really affected my vines, and to counteract that, I've added some supplemental magnesium sulfate to the ground at the time of the problem, but I'm also adding additional magnesium sulfate in the fall to help rectify the situation, and hopefully that's taken care of by next year. I've also acidified the soil in the fall in order to continue to reduce the pH of the soil so that the mineral nutrition for the minerals will be improved. And the other serious problem was the bees. The bees really got a hold of my grapes this year. I hadn't anticipated that. And so I've gone out and bought some bee netting so that I can be prepared for the bees for next year. And I'm going to set those nets out in advance before there's a bee problem. And if I don't have a bee problem, no big deal. But I want to get ahead of the game here. So from now on, I'm putting out bee nets. I still need to monitor my vineyard over time by doing mineral nutrition studies or analyses and keeping a good eye on things that are going on. And with that, I can anticipate future problems. So it's very important to keep on monitoring from season to season and keeping records of what you did in the past so that you can have an idea of what to do in the future. There's no better way to learn about your vineyard than experience. You have to do it. You can't just read about it. And from year to year, you're going to get variations, and you'll learn from those variations and adjust to those variations, as I have. And you will then too have a successful vineyard with a lot of joy and pleasure in the act of growing and producing not only grapes, but perhaps your own wine. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, then please like it on my YouTube channel so that it'll accent that channel for other people to see. And if you really liked it, then consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, where you'll get other interesting videos on viticulture, winemaking practices, and plant physiology. And you'll also get announcements of videos coming in the next season. Well, I hope you had a great time this year, and I hope and wish you a happy new year. Have a great day.